Today, for our teacher read aloud, we are going to be reading Johnny Appleseed and His Apples. As we read, we're going to work on phrasing with punctuation this week. Remember, good readers pause when they come to punctuation such as commas, periods, question marks, and exclamation points. This also helps readers change the expression in their voice if you are able to pay attention to the punctuation. As I read Johnny Appleseed and His Apples today, I want you to listen to the expression in my voice and the pauses I take for punctuation. As I'm reading, you will also be listening for each of your vocabulary and context words that you can see on the screen. When you hear one, I want you to repeat it after me and give a thumbs up, just like we did last week. I will also be pausing so you can answer some questions. You can write your answers in your reader response journal and then take a picture and send it to me in Portfolio. All right, let's begin. Johnny Appleseed and His Apples. Many people think Johnny Appleseed is a made-up character from a tall tale like Paul Bunyan or Pecos Bill. In fact, Johnny Appleseed was a real person, even if he was quite an odd character. His true name was John Chapman. He became known as Johnny Appleseed because he planted apple seeds everywhere he went. We're going to pause here for our first question. What things do people believe about Johnny Appleseed that are not facts? In the early 1800s, settlers were pushing west. John Chapman had an idea. He thought people should have apples wherever they lived. So he set out with bags of apple seeds from his orchard in Pennsylvania and began to plant apples across the frontier. He traveled all over what is now the Midwestern part of the U.S. He had tree nurseries in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Illinois, and Indiana. He gave away and sold many trees. He traded his trees or work for a meal and a floor to sleep on. John Chapman was unusual. He wore a coffee sack as a shirt and a tin pot on his head. He never wore shoes, even in winter. He was a vegetarian and very religious. He got along well with the Native Americans. He didn't seek the comforts that most men wanted, no wonder he became a legend in his own time. Let's pause again for question 2. Being a legend in his own time means that John Chapman was well known while he was alive, and people talked about him. Why might that have been true? Nowadays, people like things to happen fast. Waiting 10 seconds for a computer screen to load can seem like a long time. But it can take 10 years for an apple seed to grow into a tree that has its own apples. An apple tree grows like other plants. Seeds begin to form when a grain of pollen from an apple blossom lands on the pistil of another apple blossom. Some seeds grow a pod to cover and protect them. The fruit of the apple covers and protects the apple seeds. Let's pause again for our third question. I wonder about the word pistil. How can I find out what that means? What does pistil mean? Once the apple has ripened, it either falls to the ground and rots or is carried away and eaten. Either way, the seeds can end up in the ground. Rain will then soak the seeds and soften its hard outer coat. Now the root can crack open the seed coat and push down into the soil. The shoot can push up out of the ground. The little apple seed is on its way to becoming a sapling, a small tree. In a few more years, the sapling will become a mature tree that has fruit of its own. The seed from a tasty apple hardly ever grows into a tree that produces more tasty apples. Farmers have known this for thousands of years. That's why tasty apples are grown by grafting. That is when a piece from a good apple tree is carefully attached to a tree that is already growing. The apples that came from Johnny Appleseed's trees may have been filled with nutrition, but they most likely were not very tasty. That's why some historians think these apples were for making apple cider, a popular drink at the time. Great listening, my friends. Now let's see if you can complete your final question. What is the sequence of events for an apple seed to become an apple tree? Great listening today. Good luck with your writing.